We are the Gujarat Technological University. Since its inception over a decade ago, GTU has been empowering young and curating minds to realize their true potential. Over 4 lakh inspired students are enrolled with one of the premier academic universities in India.
Next is treatment for the reserve specified in the scheme of the amalgamation. The scheme of the amalgamation sanctioned under the provisions of the Companies Act 1956 or any other state you may prescribe the treatment to be given in the reserves of the transferor company after its amalgamation. Where the treatment is so prescribed, the same is followed. In some cases, the scheme of the amalgamation sanctioned under the statute may prescribe a different treatment to be given to the reserve of the transferor company after the amalgamation is compared to the requirements of this standard that would have been followed had no treatment been prescribed by the scheme. In such scheme, following disclosures are made in the first financial statements following the amalgamation. Right, so these are the disclosures. First is the description of the accounting treatment given to the reserves and reasons for the following the treatment different from that prescribed in this standard. Secondly, deviations, whatever gaps are there, difference are there in the accounting treatment given to the reserve as prescribed by the scheme of the amalgamation sanctioned under the statute as compared to the requirements of this standard that would have been followed had no treatment been prescribed by the scheme. And finally the financial effect, if any, arising due to the such deviation. And next is about the disclosure, how the disclosures will happen under this accounting standard. For all the amalgamation, following the disclosures are considered appropriate in the first financial statement following the amalgamation. You have to disclose the names firstly. In general, nature of the business of amalgamating companies, both the companies' names should be prescribed, nature of the company should be prescribed. Secondly, effective date of the amalgamation for the accounting purpose. Whatever effective date, मतलब कि જ્યારે actually amalgamation થશે, right? That is the જ્યારથી એમના transaction से start થશે, effective date. That also should be mentioned, disclose કરવી પડે. Method of accounting used to reflect the amalgamation, કઈ method use કરો છો, આગળ જે બે method discuss કરેલી એમાંથી. Particulars of the scheme sanctioned under the statute, whatever particulars will be there. Secondly, for amalgamation accounted for under the pooling of the interest method, following additional disclosures are considered appropriate in the first financial statement following the amalgamation. હજી આ next જો તમે follow કરો છો pooling of interest method, then you have to disclose the firstly description and the number of the shares issued. જે પણ શેર્સ ઇસ્યુ થયેલા છે એમનું ડિસ્ક્રિપ્શન, કેટલા નંબર ઓફ શેર ઇસ્યુ થયેલા છે એ મેન્શન કરો, ડિસ્ક્લોઝ કરો, ટુગેધર વિથ ધ પર્સન્ટેજ ઓફ ઈચ કંપનીઝ ઇક્વિટી શેર એક્સચેન્જ ટુ ઇફેક્ટ ધ અમાલ્ગમેશન. એક્સચેન્જ રેશિયો પણ મેન્શન કરવો પડે. ધ અમાઉન્ટ ઓફ ધ એની ડિફરન્સ બિટવીન ધ કન્સિડરેશન એન્ડ ધ વેલ્યુ ઓફ ધ નેટ આઇડેન્ટિફાયેબલ અસેટ એક્વાયર્ડ એન્ડ ધ ટ્રીટમેન્ટ thereof. જે પણ ડિફરન્સ છે કન્સિડરેશનનો એ. Then for amalgamation accounted for under the purchase method, the following additional disclosures will be required to mention. Consideration for the amalgamation, કેટલું consideration pay થયું છે, description of the consideration paid એ પણ તમારે બતાવવું પડે કે ભાઈ description કયા વેમાં તમે એમને પે કરેલું છે એ. And secondly, the amount of any difference between the consideration and the value of the net identifiable assets acquired. Then amalgamation after the balance sheet date. When the amalgamation is effected after the balance sheet date but before the issuance of the financial statement of either party to the amalgamation, the disclosure is made in accordance with the accounting standard 4, which is the contingencies and events occurring after the balance sheet date, specially prepared for that contingencies, right? But the amalgamation is not incorporated in the financial statement. In certain circumstances, the amalgamation may also provide the additional information affecting the financial statement themselves, and for instance by allowing the going concern assumptions to be maintained. So here that's it for the main accounting things mentioned in this accounting standard 14. Here afterwards main principles are there. All this is the repetition of the previous one, right? એ તમારા માટે ક્વિક રિકેપ છે આગળ આપણે જે પણ ડિસ્કસ કરેલું એનું. So go for it whenever you are preparing for the finals, and all the best for the finals.